Hi, this is Richard with the week 1 feedback video for maintaining a mindful life. And I'm in the studio by myself today. Craig's in Taiwan, and here's a video from him that he sent this morning.
Hi, it's Craig here, and hello to everybody. I'm in Taiwan speaking at a wellness conference over here for a few days, so I'm sorry not to be with you and Richard and all the team there at Monash, but send my best wishes. And great to see so many learners engaged in this course this week, and I'll just pass on a few comments, and Richard will be filling out the rest.
So we'd like to welcome a lot of new learners to the course, as well as some people that have done our previous course, Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance. Many learners are already practicing mindfulness, and some have existing meditation routines. But for a lot of our learners, of course, this is a new thing, and so establishing a routine is one of the most important things to do when learning mindfulness. Meditation is just part of the picture, of course. The bigger picture of mindfulness is how we communicate and how we live our lives moment to moment. But the meditation is very important. And some strategies that learners have noted that have helped them to get a meditation practice going. Having a dedicated space, setting up a space that's just for meditation. Having a set time during the day, and particularly tying it into an existing routine. That's something that really seems to help. Ideally first thing in the morning to make sure that you get it done, but of course that's not going to work for everybody. And so we encourage you to experiment and find a time and a place that work for you. Bookending the day actually can be a good idea. So first thing in the morning, last thing at night, but again, just really making it your own and finding out what works for you. Some learners have included meditation on their to-do list or put it into their calendar, even set alerts or alarms on their phone, which can actually be a really good strategy. And of course, you can just practice at any time, standing in a queue at a bank. Not that anyone queues at banks anymore, but perhaps standing in a queue at the movies, or getting a drink, or taking a break, or one learner even said during a toilet break. So lots of times that we can practice little meditations. And of course, some of the biggest challenges are being distracted by thoughts, And one of the biggest thoughts is that we're too busy to meditate. Perhaps we get up in the morning and we think, yeah, okay, I want to do some meditation, but then the mind's already busy with the day ahead. And so an important thing to do there is to notice that the mind is just caught up in thoughts, and we could, if we wanted to, just bring the attention back to the present moment and choose to sit and meditate. And here's Craig to say a few things about the meditations for the week.
Yeah, been good to see that everybody's been engaging with the formal practice, the comma. How to find time for the comma in our day-to-day life. And those commas could be 1 or 2 minutes, but they could be much shorter. You're about to step up and speak in public. You just take a second or two just to center yourself, just to be present. And so they could be very short. As an emergency medicine specialist said, he just when he steps up to a major emergency in the hospital, he just takes a couple of seconds to center himself before he starts diving into the situation, just to be sure that he knows his own state, where his attention is, and that he's calm and focused on what he needs to do. So it doesn't have to take a long time, but it can be very useful throughout our day, especially as we transition from various activities, to take that moment to remind ourselves to be present and engaged. It was interesting to notice the comments on the listening exercise, and that the prompts from the person directing the mindfulness practice, mindful listening, was almost an interference, and that's probably a good sign, because really the guided practice is there like trainer wheels, and we don't want to be dependent on it, but we do need the prompts, especially if we're learning mindfulness meditation. It can just help to keep us on track, but if you're feeling confident and you know the process, then you don't need the guided practice. You should be able to just practice yourself. Just turn off the guided practice and just practice without the prompts, so that you can just really engage fully with the listening without having somebody remind you to do that.
And once we've established the ability through practice to actually listen, rather than just being caught up in our thoughts, we can start to apply that to our relationships. And some learners notice that they struggled to listen and were wondering if that's because of our short attention spans. And if we really start to pay attention, we'll notice that that is actually the case. quite often when we think we're listening to someone, we're actually listening to our thoughts, waiting for our turn to speak. And so just noticing that is the important first step, because that allows us to bring our attention back to what the other person's saying, or bring our awareness to our own speech and to start speaking a bit more mindfully. And here's Craig with a few tips and tricks for that.
Lots of interesting comments about mindful communication and listening, and just to be aware of our own responses when we're communicating. Those pauses don't have to be long, but just to be aware enough when we're perhaps being reactive in a conversation, or perhaps butting in when somebody else is speaking, to actually be able to discern whether it's the right moment to speak or just to wait. So it's just that little bit of awareness. It doesn't have to be a good 5-second pause and all of a sudden the conversation's moved on. But it just means bringing that little bit of self-awareness into the conversation so that we're actually paying attention to ourselves and to others, rather than just on automatic pilot and speaking over the top of somebody perhaps, or being reactive to what somebody is saying without perhaps much discernment and so on. So let's not make it too complicated, but just help to bring that self-awareness into the communication process.
And of course, mindfulness doesn't mean not being spontaneous. We might choose to pause and bring some more awareness to our speech, but in the end, we actually want to be spontaneous. And so speaking from the heart is completely fine. We shouldn't see the mindfulness as doing everything really slowly or in some kind of controlled, unnatural way. We can certainly still communicate and live our lives just in a very normal, natural way, but just bring some more awareness to that, and perhaps just noticing some of the habits, some of the things that get in the way of communicating effectively. That's really the point here. One of the big obstacles to being mindful, of course, is digital technology. And some of our learners have started to notice that their own technology use can very much get in the way of really being present. And particularly when we're communicating, if we've got our phone out or there's a screen around, it makes it very hard to pay full attention to what the other person's saying. Some of our learners, of course, have started to put in place strategies around their own technology use, but they're starting to become frustrated about other people perhaps not paying attention, sitting there thinking that they're listening but being on their phone. And that's a difficult one to navigate. But we could always ask someone to put their phone away, or something I like to do is just stop speaking and just see how long it takes for the person to notice that I'm not saying anything. Others also appreciated some of the See Also articles, so the extra articles and links that we include each week, especially the paper on addiction and social connectedness. And for a long time, it was thought that if you put a rat in a cage and gave it a lever to press, to self-administer some kind of drugs, it would just press that lever until it died. And actually, that's the case if you put a rat in a cage by itself. But then some researchers more recently sort of rethought that experiment and created what was called rat parks. So they put together a beautiful sort of playground, a big cage with lots of other rats and lots of toys. And when they put in a lever that the rats could press to self-administer cocaine, they found that the rats didn't want anything to do with it. So in a lot of ways, we can say that connection is the opposite of addiction. And so that's one of the points of this course, to encourage mindful communication and real, genuine connection.
So that just a few comments from me, and that's all from me, and I'll leave the rest to Richard and the team, and hope you're continue to engage with the course. And for those of you who are new to it, realise that we're jumping in a little bit at the deep end with this course, so please be patient with yourself, and maybe you want to do the introductory 4-week course when it goes online early next year as well. So have a great week. I look forward to chatting to you again next week when back in Australia.
So next week, we're going to extend what we've been doing this week and start to look at how to create mindful relationships. We'll be exploring loving-kindness meditation and applying this mindful listening and communication in our relationships. So just as a reminder, particularly for new learners, don't rush through the course and get it all done in the first week. Our mentors are actually going week by week. So next week, Jen and Sherelle will be commenting on all of the steps in week 2. But also remember that cultivating that ability to listen mindfully is the foundation of mindful communication, which helps us to have mindful relationships. So really practicing and applying what we learn each week builds the base for the following week. Please also follow the course mentors so that you can see their posts as we go each week. So that's it from us, and we'll see you next week for another feedback video.